In a world where consumers are bombarded with countless messages every day, standing out and making a meaningful connection is crucial. Personalization is no longer just a buzzword, it's a strategic imperative. So, how do we move beyond generic strategies to truly individualize our approach? How can brands leverage data, technology, and creativity to deliver experiences that resonate on a personal level? Marketing and sales are full of myths, misconceptions, and sometimes flat out lies. Join us as we leave the echo chamber and discuss this hyper-targeted approach.
Hello, and welcome to the Rethink Marketing Podcast, where we try to understand and share the pros and cons of today's marketing advice. I'm Paul Frodge, joined by Mr. Marketing, and for today's conversation, the pioneer and proponent of personalized and precise marketing paradigms, Colin Jeffries. So, Colin, how are we doing today?
Oh, Paul, I feel great. What about you?
Yeah, doing well. It's interested to get into this topic and conversation for today's podcast.
Absolutely. So, the way that I look at this is we're kind of rethinking, does personalization result in customer loyalty, or is it more of a waste of energy? What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pros and cons to it. It's interesting to try to figure out, on the pro side, there's a lot to be said about personalization and customization, and really targeting people's behaviors and the way that they interact and want to receive messages and ads and that. But it's also interesting to see the cons. I talk to a lot of clients of mine, especially, and they are still creeped out about the opportunity to serve personalized ads. Some of them don't even want to do it. A lot of them have finally adapted into the change and over the years, and it's just interesting to see people's viewpoint on it. My personal viewpoint is that it's not really creating customer loyalty. It's an opportunity to serve personalized ads based on interests and habits, but the customer loyalty piece, I think, comes from other ways to market to customers and to potential buyers of your product or service.
Absolutely. I think one of the big pros of personalization is it allows us to solve additional sort of tangential problems for customers, and those can be real problems. When we think about, okay, you're buying a bicycle seat, I can then create some personalization about, hey, um, pick your customer name, right? Hey, Jane, we know you have this tech bike and we know you just bought a seat for it. Would you also be interested in buying these other things, a new helmet, new glasses, new biking gloves, new pedals, whatever the case is? We can then sell additional things to that customer that meet a real need. Now, the downside of that is somebody who goes on and they're doing some research to buy their first bike and whatnot, and we're retargeting them. And that's, to your point, Paul, when it feels a little bit creepy of how did they know that I looked at this product? How did they know that I was corresponding with somebody about this particular service? That's where it can be a little bit over the line. And I think many businesses, many marketers get a little bit trepidatious about that. What we do have to remember, though, is if we're scared of it, our competitors might be embracing it. So it might not be something that's too off the wall for our customers to experience.
Yeah, yesterday, for the first time, I don't know why, it just popped up on Twitter, on X, and asked me, do I want to receive personalized ads? And I had to think for a second. It's something that just comes natural as us as marketing professionals that we're doing this every day. But I had to take a step back and say, okay, do I want it to be personalized? And I clicked yes. But the flip side of it is, how personalized is it going to be? And looking at the privacy policies, is Twitter, going to follow the privacy policy, to a T? Are other social media platforms going to be looking at this from a privacy standpoint? We talked about Meta in the past and Facebook and everything that they went through from a regulatory standpoint. And looking at this on all digital forms of advertising, is every platform, is every DSP out there, programmatic digital, is everybody following the privacy policy the way it's supposed to be followed? So I think that's why some marketers are trepidatious, as you mentioned, looking at trying to figure out if this is going to be legitimate and really the best practice.
That's a great point, Paul. Absolutely. When we're thinking about shifting from segmentation to individualized or to personalized, I think we really have to ask ourselves what the objective is. So, if the objective is higher conversion rates, additional upselling or cross selling, increased brand trust, improved customer experience, those sorts of things, those are items that we can actually go in and measure. And we can make the shift away from segmentation and into personalization, understanding here are our goals, here's where we are from a baseline. Are we getting closer to hitting those goals, or are we actually seeing conversion rates decrease? Are we seeing customer experience get worse based on personalization? When we're looking at segmentation, segmentation's great. When we think about macro segmentation versus micro segmentation, I mean, we started with just mass market, right? You would run a newspaper ad, you'd run a radio ad to whoever listened or whoever read it. And then we were able to say, okay, well, you know, this gender in this neighborhood with this type of income and these job roles, they're consuming this media. So we're only going to advertise to them. And this other segment over here, they're consuming that media. So we're only going to advertise to them. And we could customize our messages to meet them. Well, along comes personalization and the ability to execute against that. Now with AI layered on top of it, so we can actually have truly personalized messages for each individual customer or each individual buying group that we're trying to reach. Well, now the gates have swung wide open. And I think a lot of marketers feel like we might be missing out, we might be left behind if we don't immediately jump to personalization. Well, let Paul be the voice that says, not so fast. Segmentation isn't inherently broken, and the parts of it that are may or may not be fixed by personalization. One of those issues that you brought up, Paul, is privacy concerns and appropriate use of data. That's an issue with segmentation that is not solved. In fact, it's probably exacerbated by going to the level of personalization that we now can achieve. Other issues that I've seen with segmentation, particularly micro segmentation, are this sort of cost and complexity. Right? It's very costly and it can be very complex to have 15 different segmented audiences on Meta's ad platform, for example. Well, the amount of time it takes for someone to go in and manage each of those individual campaigns and those audiences and those segments and everything is costly, and it can be prohibitive from reaching a greater mass of customers. So you add personalization in, and that just makes the problem even worse. It doesn't solve it. What else, Paul?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to what we're also rethinking today is that whole customer loyalty piece and trying to figure out and digest personalization. Does customization really truly make somebody brand loyal and make that customer experience a lot better? I think in some cases it does, but I don't believe that that customer loyalty is extended through necessarily a social media ad or a display ad or a video. I think customer loyalty is interacting with the brand in many more ways, whether it be experiential or actually experiencing the product firsthand, more so than an ad that is served up to you on a social media platform. So I'm interested to see your viewpoint on the customer loyalty and the actual advertising to you as a consumer.
I think you made a great point. There's a huge difference between experience with a brand and engagement on some digital platform with a brand. And the way that I would look at leveraging personalization to improve customer loyalty is simply once the person has made a purchase, then let's really dive in on personalization to make their experience as fantastic as possible. Something as easy, and we see this, Amazon does a great job of this. Netflix does a great job of this. When I log into Netflix or if I'm streaming on Amazon Prime or Hulu, they rearrange everything, not everything, but they rearrange most things to meet my needs and my history and to personalize it to me. When I go to Amazon, they, as Seth Godin would say, they rearrange the store just for me. And what they're doing is I'm engaging with them. And the deeper I get into my engagement with Amazon, the more stuff that I buy and the broader that range of stuff, the better Amazon knows me and the more they can personalize that storefront to me. So what we're seeing is Amazon's not necessarily saying, hey, here's this piece of content that's personalized to you, Colin, on your social media platform of choice, which is LinkedIn, right? They're actually rearranging the store, so to speak, for me. And I think more organizations can do a better job of that if we just rely on a little bit more technology. Things like automatically distributing shipping information, but putting a touch of personalization on it. Not just, hey, Colin, here's your shipping information, but we're so glad you purchased XYZ item from us. We can't wait for you to enjoy it. Here's your shipping information. If you have any issues, contact our customer success team here or contact our customer service team there. Those types of things can go a really long way. And we're talking about stuff that we've been doing with email personalization for what, Paul, 15 years? I mean, just some minor tweaks in our personalization can go really far in improving customer loyalty. And we're not talking about leveraging AI yet, even.
No, certainly agree. It's interesting. Maybe a topic for a different conversation is the amount of streaming platforms out there. But you mentioned Netflix, and I know in our household, it we're just either lazy or just have never set it up the right way. But I know on Netflix, for instance, we have all five of us. Three kids, me and my wife, and five different profiles. Every time I see one of my kids click on something, it's never on their profile. It's always on mine or my wife's. So it's interesting to see the ads that are popping up in each viewing experience. And looking at other streaming services, I know when I went and set it up, I didn't want to set it up for five different profiles. So I know on Amazon, it's only under me, for example, and everybody's using my profile. So as marketers, it would be interesting to maybe look at some more research studies on how many are like your household, where everything is customized to Colin, and somebody like my household, where everybody's interacting on different profiles. And then that personalization and that customization gets all screwed up.
That's great, Paul. That gets into the conversation about, is the buyer the actual end user or not? And are we personalizing our campaigns to the person who's writing the check or swiping the card, or I guess these days inserting the chip card? Gone are the days of swiping. But is that person who we're actually targeting and personalizing to, or are we personalizing to the end user, the person who's enjoying the product, who's actually experiencing the moments of truth? There's a lot that goes into personalization.
I would think maybe another topic would be to talk about the influencer marketing and the opportunity there. I do see my kids when they're on TikTok, for example, and they see one of the influencers that they follow. My son on YouTube, he's got this favorite YouTuber that he talks about all the time. When they're promoting a brand, I do believe that customer loyalty, especially maybe even with a younger generation and seeing the superstars promoting products, I think that can really lead into more of that customer loyalty and interaction. But overall, it's definitely a good topic. And I'm sure that our audience has either pros or cons or stuck in the middle.
Well, and Paul, even with your YouTube influencer example, I would argue that that's segmentation, not personalization. And of course, if people are being invited to, download an ebook or sign up for something or do a free trial or what have you, yes, the organization then has a huge opportunity to go in and do personalized marketing. But when we're looking at influencers on this one to many stage, that, in my opinion, is more segmentation versus personalization. So, to your point, I don't think we really solved the issue of when should we rely on personalization versus segmentation. But I think there's a lot of food for thought, certainly, in this conversation. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rethink Marketing Podcast. I think we opened more questions than we provided answers, and I'll apologize for that. But until next time, keep rethinking those common assumptions and keep rethinking the balance between personalization and segmentation. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If people want to connect with us, where should they go, Paul?
RethinkMarketingPodcast.com, Colin. What can listeners do to help us in return for the sage marketing wisdom and our pithy humor?
They can help us by leaving a review on their favorite platform or sharing this episode with a fellow marketer to help them cut through the clutter.
Well, until next time, keep rethinking those common assumptions.